Her legs were spread open in an unusual pose. Her head was situated by the footboard, and her feet were by the headboard, which is exactly the opposite of what you'd expect to see. There was on the bed itself, a drag or pull pattern to the fitted sheet. Looked like she had been dragged off. There was a blanket that was partially on the bed, but also then partially underneath her on the floor. And covering her head was a pillow. It was laying on top and concealing or covering her head. In addition to all of that, what the police saw in this area right here was a used tampon that looked like it had just been thrown on the floor. You'll hear from Laura's closest friend, Maria Clary, and her boyfriend, that type of thing is completely inconsistent with Laura's hygiene habits.
There is no DNA of Mr. Orange Taylor on that tampon string or the tampon period.
Laura Dickinson did not remove that tampon. Orange Taylor removed that tampon. I expect you'll hear this argument. Well, his DNA wasn't on the tampon. Well, first of all, when you think about the tampon, think about the fact that, of course, Laura's DNA was on it. But if you remember the chart and the 13 genetic locations, there were only 7 of those locations that there was genetic material from Laura herself. And she would have clearly been touching that tampon, in particular the tampon string. But here's the other fact about that. And it was a small point in the defendant's statement that you heard. There was a point where the defendant told Detective Farkas said, "We got your fingerprints in there." And Orange Taylor was, "No, I don't think you do." And what he said was specifically, "I mean, you shouldn't even find fingerprints really though, because when I was in there, I was like this. You know what I'm saying, doing like this." And what he was doing, and he was showing to the detectives, is he was like this. Which means this is someone who thinks about leaving evidence at locations. He was asked also, page 109 and 110, do you check the doorknobs when he's going into these places at night? What he said was, they might hear that junk or something, so I try to be doing junk that like it's no way, like if I do some ill stuff, that's going to be no way that you could get caught. Like they at lunch, oh, I seen them outside smoking a cigarette or something, that when you go up there. This is someone who is watching and waiting for an opportunity to do something. Use your common sense and life experience. Every one of you has a lifetime of experience in sizing people up and sizing situations up. Use that in this case. Don't leave it in back there. I think if you keep an open mind, use your common sense and life experience, focus on what the evidence is, and listen carefully to the judge's instructions, you're going to be convinced about what happened here.
So for those reasons, I conclude by saying, on the oath, get a verdict you can live with, do what's fair and just, make a decision you can get up in the morning and say, I've done the right thing. And if you do that, I'm certain you'll find Mr. Taylor not guilty of all charges. Not guilty of all charges. Do you understand? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Keel.